Hello, hello, and here we are for another weekly reading. I am bringing in some really grounded crystals and oils for this particular reading, and Zengest is a digestive oil, and there is a lot to digest for us in this week's cycle. So we've had this huge total solar eclipse, and oftentimes with eclipses, it's a quick and sudden, obvious reason or thing that we were going to experience over that eclipse. But sometimes we actually only realize sometime down the line that was such a pivot point for us. So this is a week of digesting a lot of that. We might not fully comprehend what all of that meant. But not only that, Mercury is still retrograde in Aries, and also one of the biggest astrological events of the year. Well, one was that eclipse last week, and one is this week's Uranus Jupiter conjunction in Taurus. This is an extremely, it only happens around every 14 years, so it's not a regular meeting point for Uranus, which has a 84-year cycle orbit, and Jupiter, which has a 12-year orbit. They don't come together very often, not to mention that when they do, it's very rarely in the same archetype. So this being Taurus. Taurus is a grounded sign. Taurus is all about the senses, so working with essential oils, working with what helps you to digest in terms of what you're eating, but also the experiences that we're having. So Taurus has got a very strong drive to kind of slow and steady, but Jupiter is expansive and Uranus is freedom loving. So this is more than likely going to be a positive and potentially shocking shift for you. But sometimes in the moment, one doesn't realize what it is. And remembering that it's happening less than 2 weeks from this last big eclipse that we were just speaking about, which means we might not even be able to tell what triggers off what, whether it's this Uranus-Jupiter conjunction, whether it was the eclipse cycle. The fact of the matter is revolution is upon us, change is happening, and that is inevitable. So choose a card between 1 and 4, and let's have a look as to what your primary theme is, because the card or the number or numbers that you choose will have a little extra pertinence for you. But this is a collective reading. Just remember that if you're needing a personal reading because you are very unclear, uncertain, overwhelmed in your own life, and you want some personalized guidance, then a personalized reading would be better. But there will be something in this for you, for anybody who finds this, even if you find it out of the timeline of when it's being recorded for, there will be something for you in this reading. Let's jump in. Here's our cards. We have a major arcana to start, the moon, which again, we've just had that big eclipse and we're kind of surrendering. Look how she's falling down into the waters, looking up at the big full moon. Okay, we just had a new moon in Aries, but nonetheless, we're building towards a full moon next week. You can see here the dark wolf and the light wolf, and it's tapping into both the conscious and unconscious, the yin, the yang, the shadow, the light. And this is very much an intuitive card, but also the unconscious. So sometimes when we get the moon, deep unconscious reservoirs are being tapped. And I think that is highly likely. If we think of the solar eclipse as being a new moon on steroids that we had last week, and seeds were planted, and now we come into this, Taurus is a sign of like the earth, so sort of tapping a reservoir deep in the earth that we didn't know was there, with Uranus sending this bolt of lightning down to earth and Jupiter opening up a chasm. And at first that might seem quite terrifying and overwhelming, and suddenly there's this chasm where there was never a chasm and we don't know what to do with that. But when we wrap our heads around it, when we digest it, hence me using such a digestive oil here, we will see that it is a very positive thing for us ultimately. But we kind of have to surrender to this insight, this inner knowing, and the unconscious realms of our psyche that are kind of being exposed by that chasm with the lightning bursting open the earth. Now, whilst we have this happen, we may also sit in the Four of Cups, which is very much apathy. She doesn't notice this gift from the universe, which is a full rainbow colored cup. She's only sitting there with the perspective of these empty cups and, a little bit like poor me, and why does it never work out for me, and why is everybody else so successful? And, this she's having a bit of a pity party, and there's always a space for a short pity party, but we don't want to get stuck in the pity party place, because actually there's plenty if she just changes her perspective. And I know I always say that when this card comes up, but for me, that's the biggest thing, is perspective. And she's almost looking in the direction of where this woman in the moon, who looks quite similar to her, is dropping down into. So she has to go right down into the depths to push back up and realize that actually everything she needs is being given to her. But first there is the surrendering. And here she's kind of at that point of just feeling like she hasn't quite hit the bottom. She hasn't quite hit rock bottom enough to want to fight for herself. Because if you think about going under the water, the urge to find air is strong. To find something to kick off of and push up for the surface to breathe. It's a survival instinct. Life is not that hard at this point with the Four of Cups, where you really have that deep survival instinct kicking in. Remember that Mercury is retrograde in the sign that is very survival instincty, Aries. And so there is a reflectiveness, which both of these cards indicate. There is a reflectiveness, there is a retrospective sort of view, and that's okay. But know that kick off the earth and find the air is right. It's imminent, okay? But maybe not overt in this week, but it's imminent. And then these two cards are both upside down. So we've got two cups cards in total, and this one is the final card of the cups story. And then we've got the Queen of Pentacles. So she's a court card. So you might look at where are you a Queen of Pentacles? Where does that resonate in you? Or who is the Queen of Pentacles person in your life that's really showing up strongly right now? So a happy Queen of Pentacles, she's upside down, so she's not at her best. But a happy Queen of Pentacles is somebody who is very confident and self-assured, and she's got her eyes closed, but she's reflecting back at that girl. If she was upright, she's not. But she would be reflecting back at that girl and saying, I'm not going to look at that attitude of yours. I'm going to close my eyes and feel my light, feel how blessed I am, because this is talking into blessings being bestowed, but she's just not feeling them yet, or noticing, recognizing them yet. Whereas if this card was upright, there would be this, I can feel that which you cannot yet see. And I don't have to see it with my eyes to know it, but she is a practical queen. As Pentacles, she's earth. So she does want to have tangible stuff. And again, that is earth. Taurus Uranus conjunction is happening in the earth sign. The Jupiter Uranus conjunction is happening in the earth sign of Taurus. So that too resonates. But because it's upside down, it feels a bit like that lightning bolt that hit the earth and opened up a chasm, has left us a little discombobulated and uncertain. So now, instead of feeling like, okay, I know what I've built, she's kind of a little bit, there's a delayed reaction, or delayed gratification, maybe is a better word. So she has to come back to a feeling. It's like a wise queen who's built this successful kingdom, and a fire sweeps through the land and everything is wiped out, and it's devastating. It's devastating for her. It's devastating for her people. But now she has to find a way to dream a new dream. And I feel like that's what's happening here, is she's now tuning in. Instead of tuning in, if she was upright, to this card, she's tuning into this card. How do we get back to emotional wholeness and emotional wellness and fulfillment? And that's what the 10 of Cups is. If it was upright, it is emotional fulfillment. It's like my cups are full. All the rainbow colors are expressed. It's very much a happy families card. So for a queen, she wants many happy families within her queendom. But this one is upside down because we're not quite there yet. The lightning bolt hit the earth. It caused a chasm. It caused a fire. It caused avalanches. It caused houses to come down. It caused dramas. And we now have to recognize, how do we rebuild? Because this has happened for us and not to us. But how do we rebuild? So where is this person in you that is a very beautiful grounded dreamer, where not only is she dreaming a new way for emotional health and wealth, and these are both feminine elements, it's not focusing very well, of earth and water, and now she wants to turn that into clay. Earth and water, let's turn it into clay, let's rebuild. But let's recognize, since we're rebuilding, since it's all been burned to the ground, let's rebuild sustainably. Let's rebuild in a new way, in a way that we now can understand that we couldn't have understood before. Because before, we didn't understand that we need sustainable energy in the way we do. We didn't understand that we need to focus on clean water the way we do. Things have changed since this queendom was originally built. Now we get the opportunity to rebuild. That comes with a bit of a shock and a bit of a shift, but ultimately it is an absolute blessing. So I feel like we may not recognize in this week how blessed we are. We need to try and just stay grounded. This is why I've brought in these oils and crystals. Stay grounded. Do your meditation practice, get out in nature as much as you can, whatever those things are for you. Journal your thoughts and feelings. Allow yourself the opportunity to reflect, to express, to recognize what's showing up for you again and again and again, and also to dream. To dream. Dream of the thing that almost feels idyllic and impossible, and then wonder, if I was given a lump of clay, how could I begin to mold that into my reality? How could I begin to turn my upside down queen the right way up? And how can I heal the emotional wounds? And remember that last eclipse was conjunct Chiron, the wounded healer. That is a big deal. For that eclipse to have been that close to that planetoid, very unlikely. So we are wounded. We are sort of re-wounded. It brought to the surface a lot of old wounds, and that has been rumbling. So it would stand to reason that the 10 of Cups would be upside down, but we're looking at how do we rebuild our sense of emotional health and wealth. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I hope that that's been helpful, and I look forward to being back with you for another weekly reading next week. Thank you for your time. Please like, share, follow, subscribe, all the things.